Teddy Feinberg, Brook Stockburger, Teddy and Brook Show, Week 3 of the 2013 season for the Teddy and Brook Show, and of course it's Week 3 for Aggie football. They are hosting the UTEP Miners this weekend, always a big rivalry game. We're going to take a look at different categories during the game, kind of decipher and figure out what team has the advantages where, and we're going to start out on the offensive side of the football. Brooke, what's your analysis here? Obviously, you have the paperwork ready, and I know you put a ton of preparation.
Yes, I've had to look this up. I can't keep it all in my head. You know, UTEP had 200 and some yards against UNM. Not a very good UNM team either. The Aggies have had a much harder start to their, more difficult start to their schedule. You know, playing Texas and Minnesota, a Big 12 and a Big 10 team. And the Aggies have actually put up some offensive yards. You know, they had 356 against Minnesota? Does that sound right?
Yeah, they had 356 for sure.
Yeah, and you know, they've moved the ball some on Texas, especially in the first half a little bit. But I think the Aggies will be able to move the ball on UTEP some. Interesting thing will be their passing game. UTEP's secondary is really beat up. They've got like 2 players injured and some other ones that are limping around.
Bottom line, UTEP ran for close to 300 yards against UNM. Aggies need to establish the running game. From an offensive standpoint, clearly UTEP is going to run. Aggies have to try and establish the run. Aggies averaging less than 3 yards per carry this year on the ground. As Brooke alluded to, that was against Texas and Minnesota. UTEP really showed a penchant to run the football. They have a freshman, Jones, who went to Burgess High School out of El Paso, and of course Nathan Jeffrey, their breakaway back. Have to give a slight edge to UTEP in that category just because they ran the ball so well. Will the Aggies be able to run the football? That's going to be a key area in this game. What about the defensive side of the ball, Brooke? What are you thinking there?
Well, like I pointed out, UTEP's kind of banged up, and they've really made some positional changes too. Put somebody else in the top spot at the defensive end, and a few things like that from what I've read. And the Aggies defense, you know, it's hit or miss. You know, they played well in the first half against Texas, and then they just get blown out in the second half. Minnesota scores 40-some points. That's to be expected, a Big Ten team, I guess. So, boy, it's really hard to say without UTEP only having one game. I'll give a slight edge to UTEP just at this point because they've had one better game than the Aggies.
Again, UTEP is bringing in a lot of new pieces on the defensive side of the ball. They only have so many returning players, maybe 2 or 3. Jermard Reed, their defensive lineman, is one of them, and he's listed as a backup on the depth chart. They give up 400 rushing yards to UNM. Again, the Aggies have to establish the running game. Aggie defense, as Brooke alluded to, it's kind of tough to quantify because they've done some very good things. They held Minnesota defensively to 30 points. Let's not forget Minnesota had a punt return and a fumble return for a touchdown. Aggies still gave up 350 yards rushing in that game. Again, Aggies have to establish the running game. And if the Aggies can run the ball in an effective clip, similar to how UNM did, I have to give the Aggies an advantage in this area. Special teams, obviously a key part to the game. Aggies have disappointed on special teams thus far.
Yeah, they have, but you might give them a little bit of an edge here because they've had so much more game practice at it. You know, in kickoff returns and punts, that sort of stuff. Yeah, they have disappointed though. And UTEP, again, we haven't seen a whole lot, just their one game, and they did okay. They have a kicker that's doing pretty well down there.
Aggies have to play better in this area. If the Aggies win this football game, they have to beat UTEP in special teams. We said it last week against Minnesota. They failed in special teams. They gave up a punt return for a touchdown. Their punter, Cale Chapman-Brown, has gotten off to a slow start this year. Their return game, I don't see a lot of explosiveness there. They had bad field position throughout. They have to play better in this area. Doug Martin's coaching that. When the head coach coaches an area of your football team, you would expect they spend more time on it in practice. You would also expect they put good personnel on that side of the ball. Special teams has to show up. Turnovers, special teams battle is going to dictate who wins this football game. Crowd. Sean Kugler said UTEP usually outnumbers Aggie fans at these football games, Aggie Memorial. I'm not going to sit here and say he's wrong, but how do you think it shakes out this weekend?
Yeah, Coach Cougs really called out the Aggie fans. And, you know, they need to be called out. They got to get out there and support their team. I don't know that UTEP really has had more fans in the years I've seen this game, but they bring a big contingent up, especially if they're doing well. So, but you see a whole lot of cars lined up on the interstate ready to get off that exit. I think the Aggie fans really have to work to get out because they're disappointed. 0-2 start. It wasn't a super great crowd last week. Hopefully, you know, the hatred of the orange will bring the crowd out. I think the Aggies will have the advantage.
Los Cruces sports fans need to prove that they show up for more than just the Mayfield and Cruces game, Week 10 of the high school football season. Brooke, what's your final score prediction on this one?
27-24 in overtime, Aggies.
That's a bold statement. This is going to be a very competitive football game, I feel. I think it's one the Aggies really need to win, or else they could be legitimately staring a 1 or a 2-win season right in the face. They have to win this game. They're obviously 6.5-point underdogs going into the game, and as I said, in order to win the game, they're going to have to win the special teams and the turnover battle. That's not a prediction, that's an analysis. I will have a prediction on my blog prior to game day. That's a Teddy Feinberg promise.
Both teams will score, though. That's what I'm saying. Both teams will score.
Both will get in the end zone. Technical difficulties. The camera battery died. But we're here to put a cap on the Teddy and Brook show. We just obviously went through the Aggie UTEP game. We did want to touch on some high school. Of course, Aggie volleyball as well. They're home. They have their first home matches of the year. They have their own host tournament this particular weekend. They start Friday, go into Saturday. And of course, Brook, on the high school football level, Cruces High has their home opener on Saturday.
Yeah, it'd be nice 2 weeks in a row to start the season away, and they've looked pretty good. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll have a great crowd over at the Field of Dreams.
Does that kind of seem like a raw deal? I mean, home opener, and it's on a Saturday, week 3. I mean, they are the defending state champs.
It does seem a little bit rare, but hey, it's toughening them up a little bit, man.
They play Cibola. Cibola is a fine team. And then, of course, Mayfield High School. They go to Carlsbad. Mayfield coming off a big win against Franklin. Franklin's defense was porous. Mayfield won 44-42, but credit the Trojans. They're 2-0. And, of course, Oneonta, they're on the road. Tough task at Cleveland.
Yeah, they played Cleveland really tough down here last year, almost beat them. But they have to go up the road and play on a Friday night, make that long bus trip back, hopefully with a victory. But, yeah, they had a close game last week down in Socorro, but Isaiah Fielder went out in the first half and was in a walking boot with some sort of ankle injury. Don't know if he'll be back this week or not, and that does affect the offense.
That, of course, is their standout running back. He really is a fine player, probably their top player. And, of course, Centennial High School is a very big football game in their own right. 4A program, Friday night, 7 p.m. at the Field of Dreams. They hosted Trisco Heritage. So Centennial on Friday at 7 p.m., Cruces High on Saturday at 1 p.m. Those are the home games. If you're a football fanatic, you can go to the Cruces High game at 1. And the Aggie UTEP game at 6, if that really interests you. Or, of course, you can really do whatever you want on Saturday. That's the beauty of the weekend. Folks, thanks for checking us out as always. Sun News Facebook, Sun News Sports, on Twitter, and, of course, LC Sun-News. I'm at Teddy Feinberg, and that's at Brook Stockberger on Twitter. Thanks for joining us as always. See ya.